know?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 21 of RKO. You didn't know? I'm Russell with always Kayvon. Say hello, Kayvon.
Hello, Kayvon.
We're going to talk today about our WrestleMania rebook, Extreme Rules, Fallout, and a couple of things we've taken from our last Raw, which was last night. Also, the King of the Ring tournament started back up. So, with further ado, let's get up to that WrestleMania rebook. Kayvon, go ahead.
Well, first of all, my main event in my perfect world for WrestleMania 31, considering what happened at WrestleMania 30, would have been The Undertaker's return to challenge the WWE World Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar. I think that made perfect sense, considering Undertaker had something to be vengeful about. His streak was broken. He went 21-1 against Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was the undefeated, seemingly unstoppable champion. It would have put Roman Reigns in a better position because Roman Reigns could have gone against Rusev, which was kind of, if you followed the house show results from the beginning of the year, Rusev and Roman Reigns had been headlining the house shows. And, in fact, a little-known fact, Rusev was actually pinned, I believe it was the first or one of the very first house shows of the year by Roman Reigns. I think the fans would have resented Roman Reigns less, just like they're doing now with John Cena. When he's not in the world title picture, the guy who is, quote, being pushed or forced down our throats, isn't in the world title picture, you don't have to resent him as much because, well, he's just going for the secondary title. I get John Cena as, the Mr. America of WWE, so it makes sense for him to capture the United States title. However, I would have had Roman Reigns versus Rusev for the U.S. title at WrestleMania, Undertaker and Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight title. I don't know, maybe a rematch between Bray Wyatt and John Cena. Bray Wyatt in his first WrestleMania match last year lost to John Cena. They could have had a special stipulation and maybe an Inferno match at WrestleMania. That's how he beat Kane in his first SummerSlam a couple years ago. I think that would have been a good direction for Bray Wyatt. I mean, losing 2 WrestleManias in a row doesn't help him. It didn't make sense that he went against The Undertaker. It didn't look to play any part after the fact, after the match. It didn't really mean anything. And the other thing that sticks out that I would have fixed is I would have had a guy like Ryback who was hot at the time. I mean, to me, from Fastlane on, Ryback week by week was gaining momentum. He was like coming back up atop the ladder and becoming more and more popular with the fans like he was during his debut. He should have won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, in my opinion. And, of course, I would have liked to seen R-Truth have his moment and win the Intercontinental title, but Daniel Bryan made sense. They wanted a big name to win that Intercontinental title, but unfortunately, in hindsight, Daniel Bryan is unfortunately looks to be out of commission for maybe a month or so or more, and who knows, that Intercontinental title might have been vacated. But R-Truth has a chance to win the King of the Ring tonight. We're taping, obviously, before the King of the Ring airs, so we don't know if that's going to happen. But those are the main things that stand out in my mind that I would fix. How about you, Russell?
Well, I think you kind of touched base on a lot of the main matches. One of the matches that we harped on that I said I didn't like, and because it was, to me, it left a man wanting to know what was going to be done from here on out, and that was Sting. And so I think if I could have changed something with Sting having his WrestleMania moment, especially with it kind of being turned around to be a WCW, WWE play on. I think I would have just went ahead and involved the parties that came out and were involved. Don't make it all about Triple H versus Sting. Make it about WCW and the NWO versus DX and Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and then have, the Ric Flair card in there because, like I said, he was with both companies in hindsight, he would have made sense to, make the decision at the end whether he went with Triple H and his buddies with DX or if he stayed true to Sting and, the NWO and WCW. So, I would have enjoyed that match better than the one-on-one with Triple H and Sting. Every guy would have got involved, and it would have been more enjoyable for me. As far as the championship matches go, we've talked about Daniel Bryan making his return, and I said I thought maybe him coming back could have been too soon. And my worry was that he would get re-injured, and that's basically what's happened. So now it leaves the Intercontinental title up for grabs, and what's going to happen with that? They could go the Brock Lesnar way and allowing him to stay off TV and, let just the title be not defended. But I think with you trying to be bringing prestige to those titles, the Intercontinental and the U.S. title, I think you have to have it defended at least at every pay-per-view and, marketed out there like John Cena's been doing with the U.S. title. So, with Daniel Bryan getting hurt, there could have been other guys in that championship match. Dean Ambrose is one of them, who right now is red hot. Could have been given that title. He had the U.S. title. Of course, he didn't do nothing with it, but, having the Intercontinental title at least would have made sense for him. I know you liked R-Truth, but maybe even Ryback, or you could have even had Rusev solidifying the U.S. title with the Intercontinental and done something that way. But I think the Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, I like the returning to get payback. It would have made sense if it was, WrestleMania 32, and he's going to be retiring. But with it being not maybe his last match, he's going to do one more. They wanting to. I just like the finish of the champion. Now, with that being said, are they already souring on the championship? Because he's not looking to be made strong right now at this particular time, and that brings us to, the next pay-per-view, and that's Extreme Rules. He is fighting Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, that is, in a steel cage, and he's telling Randy Orton that he can't use the RKO. They have Kane playing the old gatekeeper there, and so we have the result of a champion like Seth Rollins playing the scared heel, where before he was the champion, he was, to me, it looked like he was more stronger before he was the champion, and now they're making him look like he's, having to escape every time he turn around or have somebody else's help. What do you think about that?
I didn't really know what to think until I listened to JR's podcast, and he made a really great point about Seth Rollins being, of course, reminiscent of Edge, the ultimate opportunist, as to when he cashed in the Money in the Bank and how he keeps his title, keeps at the top of the roster by cheating and, using J&J security and authority and things like that. So, like I said in our last podcast, our video podcast, I expect him to have a long title reign. But it was an exciting moment. Obviously, there's never been a Money in the Bank cash-in at WrestleMania. That was exciting. But two other quick things I want to say about WrestleMania. You sparked some ideas while you were talking there. I did want to see a one-on-one Divas title match. Good length, Divas title match with maybe Nikki Bella and AJ if it was going to be her last match or second to last match, and Paige. I think that adds more prestige when the women get to have a one-on-one match for the title. And the other thing I wanted to say was, what was it? I really liked. I know you don't like the Triple H thing, but I really think it was done the right way, and it was good just for the nostalgia of it. The tag team match, the tag team titles, I think that could have been done better too. But anyways, talking about Extreme Rules, I did think their cage match was good and creative considering what they were working with. I like that Randy Orton did do the pedigree, being creative since he couldn't use the RKO, and then Seth did the, as he called it on Raw, the SKO, the Seth KO, not the RKO. So it was a controversial finish, but to me, the match, and I kind of want to run down what Russell and I predicted in the actual results of the show as we go along here. To me, the match of the night, if Roman Reigns climbed, I guess, out of the bottom of the ocean and onto dry land at WrestleMania, kind of digging himself out of a hole that was he was in for whatever reason with the fans, I think at Extreme Rules he's flying high after that. He had the match of the night. To me, he was the shining star of the evening. I think the Big Show versus Roman Reigns Last Man Standing match was the match that had the lowest expectation. I had the lowest expectations for, and it turned out to be my favorite match of the night. So I was really pleasantly surprised by Roman Reigns' performance. Russell and I both picked Roman Reigns, and that was the winner. Any thoughts on that match, Russell?
It wasn't too bad, but we've seen the ending before. He throws the table, table on the Big Show. I mean, didn't we just have this kind of ending a couple of months ago?
Well, the fact that Roman took such a beating and went through the double tables, and Big Show too, they both took a beating. I mean, if you want to change the finish, I can understand what you're saying, but it maybe should have ended with that running spear into the announcer's table instead of him tossing the table on top of him. I was really impressed with that match, though.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe give it a 2.5 out of 5. It was okay for two big men. Like I said, Big Show, he's well past his prime, and he's cannon fodder anymore. So I look for, depending on what they're doing with Kane, there has been rumors that that's going to be the next man up. It's going to be Kane versus Roman Reigns, but it was announced on Raw by Kane and voted on by the WWE universe of what the main event was going to be, and we'll get to that at the next pay-per-view, which is Payback. So Roman Reigns may already have an opponent already in mind. So the match that I enjoyed the most was the tag team match.
The tag team match was good, and actually you picked the correct winners, the New Day, Big E and Kofi. I picked Cesaro and Kidd, who did not retain, so you picked correctly. I thought the match was really good, and it was the first time I think we saw Cesaro and Tyson Kidd work as pretty prominent faces in that match. I mean, the crowd was really rooting for Cesaro and Kidd there.
So did we have a double face change there with Tyson Kidd and Cesaro?
I would say we had a double turn, but not in the same night. I mean, for somehow at WrestleMania, I think it started at WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania, the New Day Sucks chant started. So just a few weeks ago, the New Day had their turn from face to heel, which I don't think was planned, and Cesaro and Kidd has ended up as faces. So that it's almost like an organic turn by the fans for both of those teams.
And there's a couple of things I want to talk about with the New Day, but we'll get to that after we go through the rundown on Extreme Rules.
Okay. Well, next was the Kiss Me Arse match, Dolph Ziggler and Sheamus, which Dolph Ziggler actually won, but he didn't look like the winner after the match with the beatdown and the humiliation that Sheamus dished out. And actually, Sheamus was both of our picks for that match. I thought that match was okay. I mean, I think those two work together, and it looks like, judging by what Ziggler said last night on Raw, that they're going to have a rematch, not a Kiss Me Arse match, but probably just another stipulation or a regular match at Payback coming up.
I didn't like the match at all. I didn't like it at all. And,
the match, or do you like the aftermath of the match?
I didn't like the whole thing, with the Kiss My Arse match, if that's what you want to call it. I remember Vince McMahon doing the Kiss My Ass Club, and, that was funny, back then. I still, to this day, remember William Regal doing, having to kiss Vince McMahon's ass. But to see it at a pay-per-view with Dolph Ziggler getting his face, planted in between Sheamus's cheeks, you really smelt what The Rock was cooking on that one. But I just didn't like it at all. I think it's two guys that don't have to have that kind of gimmick match. I would have rather them see, them do something differently, more brutal for Extreme Rules than something degrading like that.
Yeah. Well,
the match maybe it'd have been more enjoyable, but not.
Well,
not
Ziggler.
that.
Well, Ziggler always seems to get the shaft. So it looks like that's not changing anytime soon. He didn't even advance in the King of the Ring tournament last night, thanks to Sheamus's interference. So there's another one for Ziggler. Chicago Street Fight, which actually kicked off the show. Dean Ambrose and Luke Harper, they were battling in the ring. They battled up the ramp. They battled up to the backstage area. And then Harper jumped in an SUV, was going to drive away until Ambrose jumped in through the window. And they drove off to where we don't know, apparently the streets of Chicago. And then 2 matches later, they return. They continue their brawl after Dean Ambrose tries to jump on Luke Harper and ends up taking out the New Day after their backstage interview after winning the tag titles. They make their way back out to the ring, and a whole bunch of chairs later, Ambrose wins the match. I like the match. I just wish... I guess I wish it was all in one segment, just because I think that way maybe we would have seen what actually happened out on the street. I mean, even if they could have went out into the parking lot. I mean, it kind of took, they did a lot of crazy stuff, but the thing is, I was thinking, man, when they were going backstage, I was like, we haven't seen this in a while. And I was thinking maybe we're going to get an Attitude Era hardcore match, where we're going to actually see them, because there were a couple matches in the Attitude Era that ended up in the river and then in the street when it was snowing and all this stuff, and we just kind of were left hanging there. So I would have liked to seen them actually brawl instead of just drive away and then reappear 2 matches later. What do you think, Russell?
I think, Vince McMahon or whoever's doing the booking is definitely looking back and on the WWE network that you can get for the low price of
$9.99,
and looking at these old matches and rehashing a lot of this stuff. I know we've compared Dean Ambrose to Rowdy Piper, and that's kind of what it reminded me of with Rowdy Piper and Goldust. Except instead of the white Bronco, it was a black pickup. And they cut away and then come back a couple matches later, and here they're back, fighting again. The one thing with the WWE, and I know we're in a PG era right now compared to the Attitude Era, but when you're going to have a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules, you have to step it up. And if you're going to make the matches seem that they're going to be brutal, then make sure they're brutal. If it's going to be a one time out of the year that you allow these guys to do some crazy stuff, then let them do it. But they're so worried about the PG era now, or maybe it's the concussions, or this guy's getting hurt. But it just takes away when you have a Chicago street fight, but they're not fighting in the streets of Chicago. To me, it's not extreme. It's not even a watered down ECW. You know, to me it's that bad when it comes to these matches. And so I was kind of disappointed that, you know, that there wasn't a lot more spots or anything. And that goes on to the, you know, the match that I thought was really bad. And that was the John Cena Rusev match.
Really? I didn't think that match was that bad.
Well, when I look at a Russian chain match, okay, I think back of the matches that they were even talking about at the announce table. We're even talking about JBL with his match that he had. You know, Rowdy Piper and Greg Valentine, you know, when they had their chain match. When you go back on the network and you watch these matches, they were very brutal. You know, I mean, there was blood and, you know, and they were getting hit with these chains. And to me, it was just two big guys walking around a squared circle hitting the top of a turnbuckle. It just didn't jive with the two. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't that dangerous. I mean, you got a chain between two guys. There should be some brutality there. If I got a chain on one hand, you got a chain in the other hand, and we're tied together, I'm going to use that chain as a weapon. I'm going to cut you with it. I'm going to bash your head in. You know, I'm going to beat you down. You know, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep you incapacitated so that I can take and touch these four posts. And it was just, to me, it was a spot fest for the chain.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think it's a better match. Here's the way I look at it. Like you said, it's PG era. I mean, the show is literally rated PG, which means they can only do so much. So if you place that restriction on a TV show and then you look at the things they did and you prepare yourself for, well, it's not going to exceed this limit of violence or this limit of sexuality or this, it's not going to be the Attitude Era. So when you're prepared for that and mentally you know what it's not going to be and you're watching it thinking in the realm of what it is, PG, you know, it's not as bad. I think a lot of people, and I'm not talking about you, I just see a lot of people, like in the, quote, internet wrestling community, all they can do is talk about the Attitude Era. We want that back. And look, I love the Attitude Era. I mean, that was the best stuff. But the reality is if you're going to continue watching wrestling, you're going to have to understand what it is now. It's not what it used to be. And if you're going to watch it, you're going to have to realize that's what it's going to be. You're not going to see these bloody matches. And I like the chain match just because I thought they did a good job with the drama of the match. You know, it was close a couple times where they had both of them had there at the end, all three corners touched and both their lights were on, and so you just needed one more. It didn't make Rusev look weak, even though he lost for a second time. I still feel Rusev is strong. And now we know he's going to be in an I Quit match with John Cena at Payback. So I was happy with it. But, of course, I picked John Cena. Russell, you did pick Rusev, so you did think Rusev was going to win. He didn't. And, by the way, we both picked Dean Ambrose for that Chicago street fight. So we both picked the winner there. But, I mean, it is what it is. The Intercontinental title match never happened because, like we talked about earlier, Daniel Bryan's injury. That match was moved to the pre-show, the Bad News Barrett versus Neville match. I fully expect Neville to win the King of the Ring tournament, and I think he is WWE's next big thing, without question, and coming up fast. I mean, I'm so impressed with Neville. Of course, I watched him on NXT for a year before he was on the main roster. So, I already feel like I've been watching him for a long time. I know he's new to the main roster viewers. But, Russell, I don't know, did you watch the pre-show match? Did you see Neville and Barrett?
Yeah, I did enjoy that. I wish we'd got more of an explanation of what they're going to do with the Intercontinental title now. Than just Bad News Barrett coming out talking about how he knocked Daniel Bryan out. I would, it would make more sense if they would have gave an update about him or something, which they left that to be done on Raw by his wife, which I don't know if that was even helping a storyline or what, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But I think Neville is one of those guys that you don't see that often with his in-ring ability, but I worry that he's a spot guy, a lot kind of like with Daniel Bryant. He's kind of got the same size as Bryant, but he does, he's got more of a muscular build. But some of the spots he does, he could risk injury, on a lot of those spots, especially his ending move is crazy. And, is he going to be a mainstay, or is he a, fly by night, quote unquote? I will say this: there's a lot of internet buzz about some of the things that were said about Neville, because he is a high flyer, and something that was made on Raw last night. Booker T had made a comment speaking of the King of the Ring tournament and talking about some of the guys that had won that tournament. And they were talking about Owen Hart, and Booker T made a observation that, Owen Hart wasn't a high flyer. And I think the internet buzz didn't like it too much. He, in fact, even apologized if people took offense to it, because we know Owen Hart, was killed because he was doing a stunt and fell from the sky and at a pay-per-view and was killed. But I don't think he did any harm on that.
I missed that comment somehow when he said it, but I did read all the buzz about it today. Yeah, and I'm sure that was not meant to be anything more than what it was. I think people probably need to lighten up in the sense that, they're out there for 3 hours, and sometimes you're just going to say stuff. I mean, I don't think Booker T is the type of person who would say something like that. So I don't think it was anything more than what it meant on the surface.
I agree with that. I just think that he was just talking about some of the guys that were, had won the King of the Ring.
Right.
And I'm glad they even mentioned that he took the time to even mention Owen Hart.
To acknowledge Owen Hart, yeah.
They did acknowledge him in kind of the little production they did about the King of the Ring. He wasn't, and he was the second guy to win the King of the Ring. In fact, he went on to be known from there on out as the King of Hearts. So that's why it kind of set in my stomach that people would say what they said on the internet, that Booker T shouldn't have said what he said.
Well, that's what I kind of mean. Is people just complain on the internet and they don't really think about what they're saying, or it's easy to say anything behind a keyboard on the internet like that. So I sure don't think that the Booker T meant anything by it. Let's quickly go over the main event from Extreme Rules. The WWE World Heavyweight title was on the line. Steel cage match. Kane was the gatekeeper, which means he was guarding the cage door, and the RKO was banned. Of course, steel cage match, the idea is that no one's supposed to interfere. That's why you're in a cage. And, of course, J&J Security ended up in the cage. Kane ended up in the cage, and we didn't know who he was going to take out, Kane or Seth Rollins or Randy Orton, and he ended up taking out both and J&J Security. Orton was about to win until he, after all these brawls back and forth, once everyone got involved in the match, hit Randy Orton with an SKO or an RKO and slipped out of the cage. Controversial finish, which kind of takes us to Monday Night Raw. By the way, Russell and I both picked Seth Rollins, rather. And just for our prediction points, we were both tied on this pay-per-view. We both picked 4 and 4 of the right results from Extreme Rules. So, Kane,
and I'd just like to say, just for the record, that I had a brain fart moment and decided to change my pick to John Cena, but I got a buzzard that said I couldn't do that.
He couldn't. He changed it after I already posted it.
Because he had already posted it. However, the matches hadn't started yet, so, I ended up being tied with with Kayvon.
Well, what Russell's saying is he thinks he should have beat me in the predictions, but hey, I was on the phone with him. He said Rusev. Quickly, let's just Payback is coming up in just like 3 weeks. I think it's May 17th, and it's going to be in Baltimore. Hopefully, things get sorted out in Baltimore before WWE goes there for a pay-per-view. That the city is having a lot of turmoil at the moment. The main event, like Russell said earlier, thanks to the voting of the WWE Universe and the choices given to the WWE Universe by Kane, a triple threat will be the deciding match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Seth is going to put the title on the line against both Randy Orton, his opponent from Extreme Rules, and Roman Reigns, the man he pinned at WrestleMania when he cashed in Money in the Bank to win the title. Also at Extreme Rules, it looks like Rusev and John Cena will have their final clash, their third match in a row. They were Fastlane. Rusev walked away still champion. John Cena, of course, beat him at WrestleMania. This will be their fourth at Payback. And at Extreme Rules, the Russian Chain match, John Cena beat Rusev again. This will be an I Quit match at Payback for the U.S. title. And it looks like Ziggler and Sheamus will have another match too. So those are the three potential matches we're seeing. And I would expect to see a rematch between Naomi and Nikki, which is a match we didn't talk about going over the predictions. Of course, we both picked Naomi. I think, Russell, you'll agree with me just real quickly that Naomi is, as far as athleticism goes, probably the most impressive diva on the main roster. And even though I think the Bella Twins are really great because they're really unique, and obviously their look is great. Naomi's time has come. Would you agree with me, Russell, that she is definitely deserving of a title run?
I think she is, and I think this would be the best opportunity right now with Payback coming in for a lot of these superstars who the crowd's kind of picking who they want to cheer and boo here. I think it would be a great opportunity for her if she really wanted to get over on the heel side, would be just, to place herself with the New Day. And,
yeah, she would fit in because she's a newly turned heel, and she's got that attitude. And the thing about that is, since they're going up against Cesaro and Tyson Kidd, she would fit in just like she did with the Usos going up against Natalya, the other female in the opposing team.
Yeah,
right?
It would make sense with them feuding. And, I think with, we talked about where the Payback pay-per-view is going to be held right now. There is controversy, real-life controversy going on. And I think, the WWE could actually take the opportunity to kind of push the envelope with the New Day gimmick if they chose to do so. I think if it was in an Attitude Era right now, that you would be hearing a lot, kind of like the Nation of Domination, but a little bit more of a watered-down version. And
so you're saying you would have the New Day say some controversial things on TV to kind of go along with what's happening in the news?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a fine line, but I think that they could take that. I think they could take that gimmick and really do some good when it came to, to making awareness out there, or with with real life situations. They can't kind of make fun of certain things, but this could be an opportunity where they actually use their political and social views and kind of, especially with it being in Baltimore, to kind of settle down that crowd a little bit, by having them either say something or do something that, kind of makes a statement.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it is 3 weeks from now, but I'm just curious to think, is this a situation that if the situation, hopefully not, but if it gets worse in Baltimore, with the violent protests and things that are happening, is WWE going to have to move the pay-per-view to, a neighboring state? I mean, is it going to be that bad? I would hope not, but who knows? I mean, I you might hear the New Day maybe drop a one-liner or something pertaining to the situation in Baltimore, but I don't know if I don't know. I mean, like we said, being PG, I don't know how far they go, and like you said, there's a fine line, so that would be tricky, I think. And of course, you don't want to offend or upset anybody, so they would have to be really careful, I think, if they went anywhere near that route, which I don't really expect them to do, but you never know. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we end this episode here, Russell?
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we end this episode, Russell? I guess we know where we're going on that one. Damien Sandow.
Oh, I see. You're
this gimmick
playing the game here.
Right. The gimmick that they have him doing now. I hope that it is not his new gimmick.
The mocking or imitating everybody?
Exactly.
Because you were, let me guess, you didn't like that last night, right?
Let me guess, you didn't like that right night, did you? No,
well,
I didn't.
The thing is it's kind of yeah, that could become really annoying really fast. But the thing about is I was impressed by his promo though. I mean, before he started doing that, I thought it was a very realistic promo, and he I don't know why he reminds me of like a young Rock for some reason. I have no idea why, but I just feel like he has so much potential to be a really big star in the company. But you're right, the imitation thing could get really annoying really fast.
Or it could get with Austin's what? You don't know which way it's going to go. The crowd was cheering. Now, were they cheering because they're looking at a guy who has so much potential? And we've talked about this in our podcast when I said that when The Miz left, that what were they going to do with Sandow? If they didn't allow him to come out and be, a dominant person and not just be the sidekick, getting the laughs. I kind of figured this was what was going to happen. And I thought last night when he came out and addressed the crowd and said, you know what, I've been given these gimmicks and I've ran with them and I've made the best of them. I came out in this robe and thought I was the savior of the masses, and then they put me with Miz, and I'm a stunt double. Well, I'm nobody's stunt double. I'm my own man, and from here on out, this is how it's going to be. And the crowd ate it up. But then we get, the other guy come out, which is Curtis Axel from Axelmania, and he comes out with the gimmick that I think fits him. I kind of like that. That to me is funny because he's playing off Hulk Hogan, and he had a reason for that gimmick, and he ran with that. So you have him in the ring, and you got Sandow in the ring, and all of a sudden Sandow ends up mocking it. And to me, it went stale real quick. Now, the crowd started cheering. Like I said, were they cheering because they got a guy in there that has so much potential, they feel sorry for him, and they're just going to give him the props? Or did they like it? I don't like it. I want to see him be a serious wrestler.
I know, but I think that might have been just a one-and-done thing, just a one last play on him, as the stunt double. I think I'm not under the impression that that's going to be him from here on out, where he's going to mock other guys and stuff, because I feel like that was the stunt double thing that's done with. But the Curtis Axel thing, I mean, it's good. I mean, he's been in the Royal Rumble for over 3 months now, but I feel like I'm still waiting for it to catch on. It's kind of funny. I think it would have caught on a little bit better if they would have done that moment with, you remember the last Raw before WrestleMania, where they did the Curtis Axel thing with Snoop Dogg and Hulk Hogan? That, to me, felt like a WrestleMania moment that should have happened at WrestleMania, and then I think that would have helped elevate Curtis Axel. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think, yeah. And that's what I said. I think that was an opportunity that it could have went, or, if there would have been something made of it other than, he gets put down by Hulk Hogan and ran off like a scared puppy, and
right.
but he's still coming out and saying that he's doing the actual Mania. It's just, if you remember right, about 10 years ago, Big Show did the same thing, coming out doing the Hulk Hogan gimmick right after.
Oh yeah, I remember.
WrestleMania. That was
that was like 15 years ago. It was 2000. Yeah.
And in fact, Shane McMahon said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to go Hollywood." And then he come out, started acting like Hulk Hogan, and then he was all these different characters. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know if these writers are looking back and saying, "Okay, well, what can we do that we've done before, but it's been so long that hopefully nobody remembers." And that's what we're kind of being said right now. The other thing I like to discuss was the Daniel Bryan situation. I think with Daniel Bryan right now being on the shelf, and obviously it is something that they are concerned with because they had it brought to the attention to the Raw viewers by his wife. They even made knowledge that his wife, Brie Bella, was interviewing and talking about how hurt he was and, how he was doing and so forth. So I think that it is more than just a concussion. I think it might be that he injured himself again.
Look, the guy didn't have surgery. The guy didn't have surgery.
Right.
He had a major injury, and he went the natural route because him and Brie are very like naturalists. They do everything organic, and he thought, and it worked for a while, I guess, but there was just like, even after a month after he came back, I think I was reading reports about him having elbow or shoulder issues again. Like, it was just like, and he works hard. Like, he wasn't working light when he came back. He was going full scale, And that's what worried me is that, and I had said that on the podcast before, that him coming back, either he was going to lose a step or he wasn't going to be able to wrestle the way he did before. And, they put him, in a ladder match, for the Intercontinental title. He's headbutting Dolph Ziggler, and, then he gets attacked by Sheamus, and the word on the street is that Sheamus, gave him a pretty good working, and that's why he got injured, and that's why that match with Sheamus on SmackDown was just brutal. And I think that's the one that really did him in. But he continued to work after that, but I think he was feeling the effects of that match with Sheamus.
And that's what I say. A guy like Daniel Bryan, who is a very spot wrestler, the crowd likes him because he's the underdog, but they also like him because of some of the things that he does. Going and jumping outside the ring, and the way he wrestles. You take that away from him, and you don't allow him to do those things. And what do you have? You have an undersized guy who's trying to compete against guys twice his size. And that's kind of what worries me about Neville, is that if you take away his high flying, is he just, what does he have left?
Yeah. No, I totally see the comparison. I agree with you. I guess all I can say is, hopefully, Daniel Bryan can continue to wrestle and stay in good health. I just wish the best for him. It's brutal that he spent all that time away after that huge victory at WrestleMania, when he was not only the top wrestler in WWE, but maybe the top wrestler in the world in that moment. And he had a lot happen. He got married to Brie the week after WrestleMania. Then his dad passed away. And that was a lot in a short amount of time for him. And then that injury that put him out for the rest of the year, that's a lot for a guy. And to think that he is going through issues with his injury again, that's heartbreaking, because he is so beloved by the fans, and he obviously loves to wrestle, and he has so much passion when he wrestles. So I just think I think the consensus right now is he's gone, past payback. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they vacate the Intercontinental title and then Bryan comes back, when and if he can come back. So I guess that's
that leads us to, the King of the Ring tournament. Perhaps the winner of the King of the Ring automatically has, a shot at the at the Intercontinental title against the number one contender, or, it play into what they're going to do with the Intercontinental title. There are a lot of guys right now.
If this would have happened a week later, this could have been a King of the Ring tournament / tournament for the Intercontinental Championship. Who knows,
And it may turn into that with him being on the show. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the word on the street is that Seth Rollins is having his curb stomp banned by WWE. They're saying that this move is, one, maybe too brutal. They don't want him to hurt anybody. And two, because it is a PG era and because of where the word curb stomp comes from, they are kind of trying to back away from that. My thoughts on this is that there's a lot more moves out there that are more devastating than the one he does, and so far the guy has perfected it and made it one of the biggest things in his arsenal, and the reason why he is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And I think that them taking away that move and giving him a silly DDT as a finishing move, or trying to give him something else as a finishing move, kind of takes away from his character and what we've known to expect from him. What do you think?
Well, you said it. It's the PG era. That seems to be the theme of this episode. I mean, it's the PG era. I mean, they're trying to. I mean, they've eliminated any sort of weapon shots to the head. Orton doesn't do the punt anymore. He teased it in the Extreme Rules cage match. But from what I read, it's not going to be used every night as a finishing move. But it's not completely bad where they're never going to let him use it. But it'll just be kind of like the punt was. If you remember when Orton started doing it, he didn't do it every show, but he did it kind of to move along storylines where it would take a guy out. So it was done occasionally. Rarely almost. And I think that's what you're going to see with the curb stomp. That might be the final nail in a storyline, in a feud. So who knows? I mean, Seth Rollins is obviously a very talented wrestler, so I'm sure, he can make up for it, and people will, forget about the curb stomp. It's not going to. I mean, if Orton couldn't do the RKO, I mean, that would be a bigger deal. But I think Rollins, being as new as he is and being a new champ, can change some of his wrestling style quite a bit to fit the missing curb stomp. So, I mean, it's a cool move, but I get it. It's a PG era, So, I think that's we're going to have to live with, buddy.
Nostalgia of kind of what we're seeing now with wrestling, that you're only going to see it every once in a while, and when you do see it, it's going to be special. Kind of like seeing Brock Lesnar or anything like that.
Right, yeah,
or the Undertaker.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
Or the Undertaker doing the tombstone. You don't see that up there in every match.
Right. Yeah, I think it's that type of thing, definitely. So I don't expect never to not see it again, but I don't expect to see it used in every match like it was before. I mean, it seems to be that was kind of the decision made from what I read. But Russell, I guess we can go ahead and close out this podcast. I mean, we talked about we rebooked the main parts of WrestleMania and went over Extreme Rules, and we're heading into Payback in Baltimore, which just obviously not just for WWE's sake, but we hope everything clears up in Baltimore and gets resolved there. But I think you're not going to please everybody with every show. In a PG era, especially fans like Russell, who's been watching wrestling for many years and have seen a lot of different eras in wrestling. But it's all a chapter book. There are different chapters, and some chapters are going to be better than the others. But I'm still a fan, and like I said, I think you just got to think of it within the realm of PG, and it's easier to take. A lot of it is. You just got to watch it with that mindset. But we'll be back in 2 weeks with episode 22. RKO You Didn't Know on Facebook. Like our page, like our post, comment on our post, give us your opinion on our post. What would you like us to see do better, change, anything? Your opinion matters to us. We're on iTunes Radio, Podomatic.com, and Stitcher Radio. We appreciate all the people who watched episode 20. The video podcast got a lot of positive feedback. I think we'll be doing more. We don't know exactly in how many increments, every 5 episodes, every 10. We're not really sure, but I think Russell and I do plan on doing more video podcasts. Russell, you want to go ahead and take us home for this episode?
Yeah, for Russell and for Kayvon, you've listened to episode 21 of RKO, or SKO for this week. You didn't know? Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
You didn't know?